So our theme this month is a way of life that makes a difference. And today's topic is there's always more to know. And for some of you, this past week has been so full of scary bulletins and emails, discussions and warnings that you've probably reached the point like I have of enough is enough. Give me something else to focus on, to ease my fears, to provide me with ways to stand in my power and be strong, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. So let's address those very things. The human being is a complicated, active, sometimes motivated, sometimes listless, often opinionated, periodically prejudiced, and at times overwhelmed. Hence, it's very important that we learn to stand in our power and be strong, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Reverend Dr. Raymond Charles Barkley, who founded the first Church of Religious Science in New York City in the early 1940s, was a close associate of Ernest Holmes, who appointed Barker to establish that center in Manhattan. Dr. Barker was a no-nonsense teacher of metaphysics, having served as a unity minister before deciding to join religious science. And in his book, which is very familiar to almost everybody in the room here this morning, The Power of Decision, he wrote these words: "The factor of decision may well be one of the most important functions of the human mind. Living life fully," he explained, "is the result of clarifying our thinking and making correct decisions." Well, as most of you know, I taught a class from this material last year. And the majority of those of you who were in the class as students declared that it was the best body of knowledge that you had experienced up until that time in understanding the principles of the science of mind. And as I said, Barker was a no-nonsense teacher, very clear in his descriptions and his instructions. He offered a wide bit of information. For example, he did a whole chapter on indecision, then immediately followed it with another chapter on decision. In those chapters, he reminds us that our only tools in life are our minds and our emotions. We think and we feel, and how we think and how we feel, and that determines our place in life. And since you and I are the only thinkers in our own mind, we decide how we will think and how we will feel. And Barker says of that, it's as simple as that. Well, as I said at the top of this talk, there's always more to be known. And what I have chosen to bring you about that this morning is the information in Dr. Barker's chapter on Decide to Be Healthy from the book. At the time he wrote the book, published in 1968, he explained that much of the general public was still skeptical about mental healing. And that was because they had not taken the time to study the science, which is its foundation. Spiritual healing appeals to people who view life as a spiritual experience. Yet he acknowledged that there was an increasing number who were believing and practicing mental healing with excellent results. They're certain of what they know to be true and rely on their methods. Some even combine their faith with medical assistance, with no conflict between the systems of spiritual mind healing and medical practices. But the crux of the matter is that good health is normal. And here is some good advice from Barker. When we are well, we should praise our good. We should praise our good health. In fact, he said, I think that is something that we can say regularly. I praise my good health. So let's say that together. I praise my good health. Because usually we take our good health for granted. It's relatively easy to recognize and realize that health is normal and that sickness isn't. But in our society, we give great attention to sickness. But to health, many give little or no attention. Yet knowing the power of mind as we do, all things respond to self-recognition, including our health. So here's an affirmative prayer from Dr. Barker. There is one source, one cause, one life, and one mind. This is God. My health and my well-being are this one life functioning freely in me, as me. I praise this health. I rejoice in this health. I am this health, which is spiritual, perfect, and free. No guilt or fear in my subconscious mind can interrupt or affect this health. I declare its permanency, even as I know that the spirit within me is permanent. And I have copies of that for you this morning. If you want to just pass those around, keep them, take them home, and use them. And Helen, if you would be kind enough to post that on our Facebook page as well, that would be great. Appreciate it. Because we know that the more we impress upon our subconscious mind the normalcy and the value of health, the more secure we are in our health. That leads to living in ways of health that work for you individually. Your routines of healthy living and mine may be different from each other, but we recognize each other's right actions, and we accept that in this regard for ourselves and for others. And to see them play out in the results that each of us achieve is the demonstration, even though it may come in different ways. And the ever important caveat to that is attached, as you so well remember, at no one else's expense or harm. And as Barker reminds us, we must remember that life is a science, and we must follow the laws to keep on living in good health. As I mentioned twice before, and still again, Barker was a no-nonsense teacher. He spoke very clearly from that platform. Health, he said, is something that one must believe is normal, which means a health problem is not normal. And further, he reminded us that hoping is not decisive. It's a palliative, which means treating the symptoms rather than the cause. So a person seeking health and maintaining it has to decide to be well before results are demonstrated. And then, another factor of equal importance is the expectation of being well. The subconscious mind, which is the operative system of the spiritual being having a human experience, begins to create a healthy body when the conscious mind acts authoritatively with a decision of health. For some of us, that means reversing some thinking patterns in our subconscious. Like, you'll recognize this, I'm sure. It's the flu season, folks. Everybody knows that. Well, that wasn't in my subconscious until I heard it repeatedly on TV and the radio, from my neighbors and my relatives. So to redirect patterns like that with power in the exact opposite direction to produce health takes a good amount of determination. It takes clear thinking on the part of the conscious mind, which means making the decision that health is my norm. And recognizing that it takes real stamina to be healthy. Because our bodies always respond to our beliefs. And especially our beliefs about them, meaning our bodies. Our subconscious minds only create out of our own beliefs. So send the positive, healthy thoughts in every direction, including into your subconscious. So facing out into the world at this moment, on this day, in this place, is there any good news? Depends on where you're looking, doesn't it? And for what? The Buddha taught that everything is impermanent. Flowers, tables, mountains, political regimes, bodies, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. We cannot find anything that is not impermanent. That comes from a chapter in the book, The Art of Uncertainty. And the chapter is titled, Like It or Not, This Too Shall Pass. So even if you're like many people whose tendency is to resist change, this might be a time to remember and to use as an affirmation, this too shall pass. And welcome the passing of this current experience unfolding in the world. Because nothing and no thing lasts forever. The law of impermanence is a universal principle that everything which has a beginning has an ending, except the principle of life itself, capital P on principle. Life, in that statement, is another name for infinite intelligence or cosmic energy. Life is indestructible because it is the eternal divine essence. And as we surround ourselves with that truth, that supports our way of life that makes a difference. First, it supports our own faith in good health and our expectation that we continue to express that physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And because that then is the energy field that we emit. It goes before us. Let that be your ongoing contribution to the healing process within, around, and through you. And so it is.